Hello, Satnam, and welcome back to the Aquarian Shift. I am Jason Diltz, also known as Tag Kaldeep, and today I'm going to talk about the 9 dimensions of consciousness. I'm going to explain, first of all, what a dimension is, and then what each of these 9 dimensions are. As well as how and why they're relevant to you. And what I'm going to be talking about is based on the work by Barbara Hand Clow. She is an author, an astrologer. I think one of the most important cosmologists and timekeepers on the planet right now. And this is largely from the book that she wrote called Alchemy of Nine Dimensions. And I have a copy of it in front of me. I highly recommend anybody who is interested in anything esoteric, anything related to understanding the depths of consciousness, to read this book. This is the 2nd edition. She just came out with a 3rd edition that goes way deeper into the 8th and the 9th dimensions. So what I'm going to tell you about the 8th and the 9th dimensions is based off of the understandings from the 2nd edition, but she has added more information, so I may do another video once I get the new edition to talk more about those dimensions, because those are really they're the dimensions that really fascinate me. I get really into the higher dimensions of consciousness. So I want to just start by giving a little bit of a definition around what a dimension is. Some of you may be familiar with the term dimension, but it's a bit abstract. It's a bit amorphous in the way that it gets talked about. This is the Aquarian shift, and most people's reference to the age of Aquarius is that song by a band called The Fifth Dimension, talking about this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. So dimension is a word that's kind of been floating around in the collective psyche, the 4th dimension, as I'll talk about in a minute. But what exactly is it? Well, a dimension, it's really best understood as a distinct level of frequency of consciousness, and it's a frequency that organizes and governs reality. Each dimension represents a unique energetic field, and that field is characterized by its own set of laws, its own perceptions, its own functions, its own shaping of how consciousness interacts with and perceives the universe. A dimension, most of these are not physical places. Rather, they're states of awareness, or they're vibratory states. A dimension exists one dimension exists simultaneously with all other dimensions. You can access more than one dimension at a time, although most of us only live in our consciously experiencing the 3rd dimension, which is linear time and space. Yet every dimension can be experienced differently depending on the level of consciousness that the individual is attuned to. So, the more meditative you are, the deeper you dive into the depths of your psyche, the more access you're going to have to these other dimensions. Dimensions build up on each other, with each one higher and encompassing greater levels of complexity, as well as unity and creativity. They're the building blocks of the cosmos, and they're interwoven to create this multidimensional nature of existence. In the Alchemy of Nine Dimensions, the book that I have right here, Barbara Hand Clow really emphasizes that humans have access to all 9 dimensions. And we access those through our consciousness, and that allows for profound spiritual growth, creative expression, and really just the potential to align ourselves with the harmony of the universe. And so why is this important right now? Well, as I talk about all the time on here, we are going through massive changes on every level. Rapid changes that we've never seen before, changes that feel very, very intense. I find it very helpful to have as deep and as wide of an understanding about the cosmos as possible during these times. When you understand dimensions, and when you understand that things are playing out and happening on different planes of reality, it gives you a broader context to everything that's going on. And you'll really understand this when I get into the difference between the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th dimension. But we have 2 other dimensions to talk about first. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to describe each of these dimensions. I'm going to tell you about their significance, and then I'm going to give a little practical application for how you can have an experience of these dimensions. And I will say, if this is something you are interested in, read Barbara Hand Clow's book. Get the audiobook as well. They actually have guided meditations. Her husband, Jerry Clow, is a craniosacral therapist, and he leads you through guided meditation so that you can experience each of these 9 dimensions. They also have on their website a whole walkthrough for how to lead a workshop on having participants experience the 9 dimensions, which I would love to learn how to do, and maybe do that one day. Barbara Hand Clow and Jerry Clow are no longer teaching these, but they've given the information free for everybody to access to go teach this themselves. And this is just a topic that I just super geeked out on. I got introduced to Barbara Hand Clow via Guru Jagat. She was one of many interesting characters that was on her reality riffing podcast. And I didn't just read the books that she was talking about on that podcast. I got super deep into really the whole catalog of her work, and this whole concept of 9 dimensions really resonated with me. So the first dimension, that is the core of the earth. It's the Earth's iron crystal. This is a dimension that represents the densest form of consciousness. It's anchored in the iron crystal at the center of the earth. So that movie Journey to the Center of the Earth, they were going to the first dimension. This is the source of the Earth's magnetic field, and it serves as the foundational energy that supports all physical forms. And we're unique as a planet in that we have an iron core, and that really grounds us to this field. The significance of this dimension, connecting with the first dimension, it grounds us. It provides stability, and it gives us a sense of belonging. There's a reason why we belong to this planet. The first dimension is that dimension that ties us to that belonging. In times of rapid change, which is what we're going through right now, this being connected to the first dimension is really essential for grounding oneself and for maintaining balance and resilience. When you are attuned to the first dimension, you can really enhance your physical well-being, and you can deepen your connection to the planet as a whole. Now, practical application, what does it mean to be connected to the first dimension? Well, engage in some grounding exercises, walking barefoot on the earth, practicing mindfulness, visualizing your roots extending from your body into the earth's core. That is a way to really feel connected with the foundation of what the first dimension is. I think anytime you get out in nature, anytime, even if you're wearing shoes, just being in nature is going to help ground you with that first dimension. Then we get into the second dimension, and that is the telluric realm, which I think telluric is such a cool word. The second dimension encompasses the realm of elements and mineral consciousness. So this includes the crust of the earth. This is the minerals. This is the collective intelligence of microorganisms. This is a world of primal instincts. It's a raw world, and it's unrefined energies. So crystals, those of you that have fascinations with crystals, as I clearly do, that is a second dimension experience. During 2020, when all the 2020 things were happening, it was talked about that there was an imbalance in the second dimension, and that our humanity's relationship with the telluric realm, with the microorganisms, the microbials, viruses, all of those things was we were very disconnected from the earth, and that's why you had the pandemic happen, in part because of that disconnection that we have collectively with the second dimension. Because let's face it, we don't exactly take great care of this planet that we live on. So what's the significance of the second dimension? Well, understanding this dimension allows us to appreciate the foundational building blocks of life and the interconnectedness of really all living systems. In the context of environmental challenges, which we're facing right now, recognizing the consciousness within the Earth's element can really inspire more sustainability and more respectful interactions with our planet, which I think is something that everybody can agree would be a good thing. To be in reverence and live in reverence with the Earth, and to have a true, genuine relationship with the Earth. So practical application. This is another one. Spending time in nature is going to connect you not only to the first dimension, but to the second dimension. Meditating with crystals. I have a second dimension experience literally every day at my altar. This is only one place in my house where I have crystals. You too can have experiences with crystals and experience a second dimension at the same time. Engaging in ecological conversation efforts to connect with the second dimension. Anytime we're talking about ecology, that is a second dimension experience. And any of these activations, it's going to foster a deeper appreciation with the Earth's elemental consciousness. So the third dimension is what I'm going to talk about next, and that's the one everybody viscerally understands because we all live in it, and that is linear time and space. My name is Jason. I am alive in the year 2024. I am broadcasting from Los Angeles, California. That is me existing in linear time and space. You're whoever you are, you're where you're at, you're the identity that you are, you're 3D. I'm 3D. We live in a 3D reality. The third dimension, it's our everyday life. It's characterized by linear time, physical space, and the perception of separation between objects and individuals. So the perception that I'm me and you're you, and somehow that is separate, that is a third dimension perception. In this realm where our five senses operate, there is duality. There's polarity. There's a positive, there's a negative, there's a masculine, there's a feminine, there's a good, there's a bad. Those are third dimensional concepts. Light, dark, good, bad. One of those energies is going to prevail in the third dimension because it's a battle of polarities. So what's the significance of the third dimension? Well, kind of self-evident, but going deeper, while the third dimension offers structure and it offers the ability to experience individuality, which I love being an individual, I'm a Leo after all, it also presents limitations through quite rigid perceptions and, let's face it, materialism. Awareness of these constraints encourages us to seek higher consciousness and transcend dualistic thinking. At least that's the hope. We've spent thousands upon thousands of years living a three-dimensional experience, not really considering the fullness of all these other dimensions. And we're now at a point where we, in this incarnation, in this life, have the ability to go from this dimension into a higher dimension. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Practical application of the third dimension, it's what I talk about every day. Practice mindfulness, meditate, be self-aware, recognize when you're confined by three-dimensional thinking. The biggest practical application of this is one of the Aquarian Sutras that I always talk about, which is recognize that the other person is you. There is no separateness. You have to be aware that while you have a distinct identity and the other person has a distinct identity, that is a third-dimensional perception. In fact, we're just mirroring to each other. Engaging in creative endeavors, exploring new perspectives, and I very much encourage you to explore perspectives that are outside of the perspectives that you're comfortable with, and also questioning limiting beliefs. That can all help expand your consciousness beyond the third dimension, because that's ultimately what we're wanting to do. Okay, we've had incarnation after incarnation after incarnation of just linear time and space, and I'm you and you're me, and I'm doing the thing and you're doing the thing, and we're having the fight, and I want the thing and you want my thing. It's boring. It's, we've had thousands of years of this. It's time for something new. And that ultimately is going to get us into the fifth dimension. But before we get to which is a heart-centered consciousness and a unity consciousness. But before we get to the fifth dimension, we have to talk about the fourth dimension, which is really where we're having a lot of problems right now. And that's the realm of the collective, it's the collective consciousness. The fourth dimension, it's the dimension of emotions, it's the dimension of dreams, symbols, archetypes. It serves as a bridge between the physical realm and the spiritual realm, and it houses the collective unconscious and the emotional energies that influence human behavior. The emotional energies that influence human behavior. So, practically speaking, what is the fourth dimension? Well, I'm talking into the fourth dimension right now. Social media is the fourth dimension because it's taking the collective consciousness, it's taking the thoughts of the collective, and it's putting them out into the ethers. And then we access those thoughts and they start to invade our three-dimensional life. The biggest example of the power of the fourth dimension is turning on your television and tuning to MSNBC, CNN, or Fox News. Do that, and you will suddenly be invaded by an agenda of emotions. There will be a broadcast of a certain narrative that those networks are trying to trance you into. They're going to try to make you afraid of one side and one perspective. And most people walk around being very susceptible to the energies and to the polarities of the fourth dimension, not realizing that all that is one of 9 dimensions, and you can choose how thick you want your relationship with that to be. I think most of us are aware of and understand the idea of collective thought and how collective thought can influence us as individuals. When everybody around us is afraid, we tend to be afraid. When everyone around us feels good, we tend to feel good. That's why we want to be in spaces where people are having fun, where people are fun-loving, and where people are generally like happy, because they're projecting a fourth dimensional experience that is harmonizing and it feels good to us. Unfortunately, the pervading agenda for the last many years on this planet has been an agenda of fear, and that's something we've got to come out of. Now, the practical application of the fourth dimension, one thing you can do is keep a dream journal. A lot of the processing that happens with our 3D experience of the 4D happens via dreams. So journal. Sometimes there are occasions where dreams are prophetic. There are occasions where dreams are windows into the past or windows into the future, but most of the time it's just you processing the fourth dimension. So keeping a dream journal is really, really helpful. Exploring mythological stories, because that's where these archetypes come from, these stories that are so much bigger than us. I study astrology. I talk a lot on this channel about astrology. Those archetypes are ultimately fourth dimension. You can engage in therapeutic practices like art therapy to connect with the fourth dimension. That's you kind of acting out your own psyche, how it's affected by the collective into a three-dimensional form of art. These activities can, really help you access and integrate the rich symbolism and the deep the emotional depth of this realm without getting caught in the negative stream of it. The fourth dimension, I don't mean to shit all over it. It's important. We want to be tapped into the energy of the collective. We just don't want to be pulled down by it. And I just see a lot of us getting pulled down by it. But there are other ways we can relate. Hang on. Sorry, I need a little water. So that brings us into the fifth dimension. This is the dimension we want to be moving into. Depending on what algorithm you're in, a few years ago, it was a really hot topic about 3D to 5D. A lot of people on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok were talking about how we were all going to ascend into 5D consciousness. I would listen to these people talk, and some of them had some sort of understanding of it, but a lot of it was just sort of new age fluff. I think Barbara Hand Clow grounds this in a way that kind of makes sense to me. The fifth dimension, that's where you're transcending duality. It's where you're offering a state of unity. This is unconditional love. This is an expanded awareness. This is where individuals experience interconnectedness with all life, and where there's a sense of oneness, and where you and the universe start to have a relationship. It's that heart-centered reality that we all want to shift into. It's that concept of higher love. I love that cover song that Whitney Houston does, Think About It, There Must Be Higher Love. If you listen to the lyrics of that song, that's ultimately a song that's taking, the lyrics are taking you into a fifth dimensional reality, which is not love from a I need something from the other person perspective, or I need myself validated in a relationship dynamic, but love coming from the heart, and love coming from a place of true, authentic connection. And ultimately what we want to be going for is a unity consciousness where we're not seeing each other as separate, where we are recognizing that the other person is us, and where we're able to take that unity, take that collection, and build something new that hasn't been built before. That's why we want to be moving into the fifth dimension. So the significance of this, embracing a fifth dimensional consciousness fosters compassion, which we need a whole lot of compassion on this planet right now. It fosters empathy, collaborative efforts toward global well-being. It's an era, in an era marked by division. Cultivating unity consciousness, it's really going to lead to not just harmonious relationships in your own life, but innovative solutions for the collective. And that's what we want. So what's a practical application of this? Well, engage in heart-centered meditations. In Kundalini Yoga, we have so many meditations and so many yogic sets that engage the heart center. Anytime you're opening up your heart in a meditative way, you're opening yourself up to the energies of the fifth dimension. You can just practice random acts of kindness. That will open you up to the fifth dimension too. You don't have to get Om Namo Gurudev Namo about it. You don't have to do cat cow. You can just be kind to other people. That is a rarity in today's world. You can seek experiences that promote a sense of inner connectedness. That's going to attune you to the fifth dimension. Anytime we're bringing community together and we're doing it in an authentic way, that's fifth dimension. These are practices that are going to help you embody the principles of unity consciousness and start to rid yourself of the duality. So I think you can see now how most of us exist in a reality where we're in touch with the third dimension every day. We're affected by the fourth dimension. I think most people can understand that, yes, I would like to live a more heart-centered, authentic life and feel more connection to the other person. So fifth dimension, that can be practically interwoven into our life. And by the way, the fifth dimension is the promise of the Aquarian age. The promise of the Aquarian age is that we will all start to live a fifth dimensional reality by the time the true energy of the Aquarian age takes hold. So the next 4 dimensions I'm going to talk about are higher concepts. So just bear with me, and if some of this is a little what the fuck, that's okay. It was a little what the fuck the first time I heard about it too. But I was intentional in wearing this t-shirt because it's a representation of the sixth dimension, and that is sacred geometry and platonic forms. And this is sacred geometry. So the sixth dimension, it's the realm of geometric patterns of mathematical principles. It's the archetypal blueprint that underlines all physical manifestations. It's the template for all forms and how they exist in a perfect state. It's a little bit of a heady concept, but the thing to realize is there's nothing accidental. This planet, I am not somebody that believes that just bang, it all happened. I have a belief, and I think many people have a belief in some sort of higher order to things. And what is the building block of that higher order? Well, it's the sixth dimension. It's sacred geometry. The way that the planet was created is based on patterns. And you see these patterns in nature. A really cool example of the sixth dimension is when a snake slithers by you. If you can learn to not be afraid of that snake. Now, if they're poisonous and they're about to bite you, then you might want to be afraid. But I'm just talking about average snake that slithers by you. First take a step back and then take a moment to appreciate the pattern on that snake, because what they are is a living embodiment of the sixth dimension. And I finally made peace with snakes this past year after I started to deeply understand the sixth dimension more, because I was able to see that they are just, you look at their scales, look at the patterns on their body, and they are just very slithering and being attuned to the sixth dimension. Another way the sixth dimension expresses yourself, does anybody have a cat? You know how they do like weird shapes all the time? I had a cat named Hobbs, who belonged to a friend of mine. He came to live with me for a few years. You know, he would always stretch himself out in these very interesting ways, very Sphinx-like. And what Barbara Hand Clow talks about, and this resonates with me, is that what cats, and cats aren't the only animals to do this, but what specifically what cats are doing is they're attuning their frequency to the sixth dimension. You see, animals are in touch with these higher dimensions more so than we consciously are, because they don't have all the things that distract them that we do. You know, they don't have to make money, they don't have to pay rent, their food is given to them by their human, and they don't have the same kind of struggles that we have. So they're able to tap into the sixth dimension. And yes, I see this with rabbits. I watch a call and Amrit. Throughout the day, they'll move around. And it's so interesting. Depending on the time of day, it has more to do with where the sun is, not so much what the actual time is, but depending on where the sun is, they will be at different parts of the room. They'll be angled in certain ways. Sometimes they'll be looking at each other. Sometimes they'll be looking apart from each other. And they'll do things like they both go into Sphinx pose sometimes. Another thing that they did, I used to have this dining table that had, it was like bar stools. And so they could jump up on the bar stools, and there was 4 of them. And if I went downstairs at night to get a drink of water, depending on what time it was and the time of year, I could pretty much guess what bar stool each of them was going to be on, because they had a pattern, and they would there was 4 bar stools, and they would each shift these bar stools throughout the night. And I began to notice it wasn't random. It was if I came down at 2:00 in the morning, within a few days of each other, they would both always be on the same bar stool. And then if I came down at 4, it would shift. Well, that's the sixth dimension. You know, I don't know what they're in tune with, but they're in tune with something, and they're expressing it. And that's an example of the sixth dimension. So what's the significance of the sixth dimension? Well, understanding the sixth dimension provides insight into the fundamental structures of reality and the interconnectedness of all things. Where did the pyramids come from? How did the pyramids get built? I don't know, but the sixth dimension would tell us the answers. The awareness can inspire creativity, it can inspire innovation, and really just a deeper appreciation for the harmony inherent in the universe. And so practical application of this, study sacred geometry. That's something I really want to do. I don't know a whole lot about it other than just what I've read about in Alchemy of Nine Dimensions. I would really like to understand more about like what do the patterns on this shirt mean? Engage in creative arts. One reason why I really enjoy visual art, particularly abstract art, is you're seeing an expression of the sixth dimension, and whether that artist is consciously aware of it or not, that's what's being expressed so much with abstract art. Explore mathematical concepts that connect with the sixth dimension. I sucked at math. I particularly sucked at geometry, and it's because of the way it's taught in America. It is completely divorced from any connection to something higher, and it's synthesized down to something very mechanical and to me very boring. But if geometry and mathematics had been taught to me in their true dimension that they exist, which is being part of a higher order, I would have been very interested in that. And I have a lot of things I need to do with my life, so I don't know that going back and studying geometry is really in the cards, but I definitely want to read a book about sacred geometry, and I'd like to understand more about that. And these are practical pursuits that can really enhance your understanding for the underlying patterns that shape our reality. And I just think as the world turns and changes and seems so chaotic at times, to understand the basic building blocks of reality, I think that's pretty helpful. So that's the sixth dimension. We got 3 more. The seventh dimension is the realm of cosmic sound and light. Cosmic sound, or sound. The seventh dimension encompasses the vibrational frequencies of sound and light that permeate the cosmos. It is the domain where the harmonic resonance of the universe is experienced, influencing the manifestation of reality. So we know what sound is on this planet. My voice is a sound, your voice is a sound. Music is made and it's beautiful, and that has a certain frequency and a certain resonance, and that is sound. The universe itself has a sound. I believe you can go on YouTube and you can listen to the sounds of different planets. You can, if you were to be in space, you would hear a sound, and that's the seventh dimension. You can experience this without going to space. I won't go too deep into this because it's very personal, but I had a somatic healing experience about 1.5 years ago. And at one point during that experience, I literally felt the sound barrier break, the barrier of sound between this dimension and other dimensions. And I heard a vibration and a frequency that was otherworldly that I had never heard before. And I immediately had this understanding that that's the seventh dimension. I had read about it as a concept, but in that moment, I experienced it. And I will tell you, it was that moment when I became a believer in all of this. I had sort of intellectually enjoyed reading Barbara Hand Clow's Seventh Dimension, or as an Alchemy of Nine Dimensions. But it wasn't until I had my own personal experience with having the sound barrier broken in a state of somatic healing that I experienced the seventh dimension. And at that point I realized, okay, wow, this stuff is real. So what's the significance of the seventh dimension? Well, attuning to this dimension, it's going to allow you to harness the transformative power of sound and of light for healing and spiritual growth. If you go to sound baths, if you've never been to a sound bath, try to find one where you live. If you don't live in a place where you can get to one, go on YouTube. There are sound baths on YouTube. It's not quite the same as going in person, but it'll give you a good experience. Just laying on the floor, closing your eyes, and letting sound wash over your body will give you an experience of the seventh dimension. Sound healing is so important. I cannot emphasize it enough. This is, when I used to go to Rama, I would be there like every Friday. And the people behind the desk would always be like, wow, you really like sound baths. And I'm like, yeah, because it is the easiest, most accessible way to allow all of the anxieties, all of the fears, all of the negative energy that gets collected into us to wash away. And that's what the seventh dimension ultimately does. When you go to a sound bath and somebody's playing a gong or a crystal bowl, they're tapping into cosmic sounds. They're tapping into seventh dimension frequencies. And those frequencies have a healing effect on us. Light therapy, light healing, that is another form. I myself have not experienced that yet, but I know many people who have, and that's very powerful. Things like sound baths, things like light therapy, they're gaining recognition for their efficacy and in the ways that they promote well-being. And I think it's really important. So practical application, go to a sound bath. Can't go to one where you live, go on YouTube. You can find them there. Practice chanting and toning. There's all sorts of ways you can attune to the different frequencies just by doing tonal work. You can go on YouTube and find these like chakra toning meditations. Every time I do a sound bath with Torkum G, who I recommend it. Anybody is in LA, or if you're not in LA, just look him up. His name is Torkji. He always has us start, before he does a sound bath, he has us tune in with vocal toning. That's tuning you into the seventh dimension. Expose yourself to natural light. There's a whole science that I'm not even going to begin to try to dissect. My friend Mary could tell you all about it, but it has to do with how important it is to be connected to natural light. And many of you may be aware of the conversations that are going on around the adverse effects of blue light, which I am participating in right now. This is the very blue light experience I'm having talking to you over a phone. I should be wearing my glasses. But becoming more aware of just the importance of having natural light, that's going to attune you more into the seventh dimension. So Mary and I have talked about doing a podcast together. Maybe we'll do that, and we'll do a special podcast about the seventh dimension. I can talk about my stuff, and she can talk about what she knows about light. So put a pin in that. But anyways, these are experiences that are going to really facilitate healing and elevating your vibratory frequency in, I think, some really powerful ways. So now we're going into the eighth and the ninth dimension. These are heady concepts, these two. And I'm going to explain them as best as I can, and just understand that there are different interpretations about all of this, but particularly these two. So the eighth dimension it's God or God consciousness, and it's also just sort of the galactic consciousness. And when I say God, that's, whatever your understanding of the divine is. The eighth dimension represents a collective intelligence and the higher consciousness of the galaxy. This is where systems of organization, cosmic laws, universal communication, and sort of like the intergalactic network of communication in general originates from. This is the realm of advanced civilizations, extraterrestrial beings, and the collective mind of, our Milky Way galaxy and, galaxies beyond. There are conversations happening right now about extraterrestrial life. There are the drones in New Jersey, and no one quite knows what they are, and I don't know what they are, but I would not be surprised if sometime in the next 20 years, while Pluto is in Aquarius, if we had an awareness of other intelligence in the universe. And when that happens, that will be an eighth dimension experience. So what's the significance of the eighth dimension? Well, the eighth dimension connects us to the greater cosmic ecosystem. It helps us understand the Earth's role in a vast network of intelligent life. As humanity faces challenges on a planetary scale, tapping into this eighth dimension is going to inspire us to think globally and truly act universally, because what we do on this planet does affect the entire cosmos. One example of the eighth dimension, if you're familiar at all with the author and hypnotherapist Dolores Cannon, she wrote a book called, I believe it was called The Volunteers, or maybe it was The Three Waves of Volunteers. The idea basically was that when we developed the atomic bomb in the 1940s, we collectively for the first time had the ability to destroy, just poof, the entire planet. So the idea being that there, is an intergalactic network of intelligence, if that is true, if we blew ourselves up, that would not only affect this planet, but it would affect other planets, and it would affect other universes. So essentially a call went out to the consciousness of other universes. And the call was basically, hey, Earth is in trouble. They have gotten really caught up in hate and fear, and if they don't correct course, they're going to blow themselves up, and that's going to just really affect all of us. So we need volunteers to go to the Earth to help them. And so over the course of the next many decades, you had what Dolores Cannon calls the volunteers. These were souls from other planets, other galaxies, other planes of existence who volunteered to incarnate in a human body on the Earth and help move humanity forward in a more positive way. And of course, we have not blown ourselves up, thankfully, and hopefully we will not. And much of that is because of the work that these volunteers have done to help harmonize the energies here on the planet. That's another book that I just found fascinating. It gets into the past life concept. It gets into the concept of interdimensionality, which these may be very weird concepts for some of you, and if they are, that's totally okay. In case you haven't noticed, I like talking about weird and esoteric things. But that is an example of how the eighth dimension plays out. This is also a dimension that awakens an awakening of our galactic origins and potential encouraging collaborations beyond this earth. There is the idea that we originate from different star systems. Barbara Hand Clow now talks openly about the fact that she believes that she is from the Pleiades. I believe, yes, she does now talk openly about her belief that she is living a simultaneous life in the Pleiades while on Earth. That's a very eighth dimensional thing. If you live in LA, you'll meet people who will tell you they're Pleiadian. You'll meet people who will tell you that they're Andromedan or Sirian. There's all kinds of star systems, and there's many star seeds from these systems. That's a concept that's very eighth dimensional. So all of that said, practical application for those of you that are like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? If you just meditate, if you care nothing about aliens, you care nothing about your Pleiadian past, present, or future, if you just meditate, you're tapping into the galactic energy, and you're tapping into the God energy, and you're tapping into the highest parts of yourself in relation to the cosmos. You can also study the stars, study galactic history by understanding about astronomy, understanding astrology, understanding how all of this relates to cosmology. And then, just in your daily life, become aware of planetary energy. When Pluto is moving through a certain house in your chart, just become aware of the just general basis of what that means. When Uranus when Uranus moves into a different sign, which is happening in the near future, become aware of the planet of sudden changes and the planet that wants you to be free from the known. What does that mean, and what does that mean for you? That's eighth dimensional stuff. So that brings us to the last one, which is the ninth dimension. And Barbara Hand Clow has renamed this dimension a few times, but the name all kind of comes to the same thing. And it's the idea of cosmic time, source consciousness, or the sort of concept of the black hole. So the ninth dimension, it's the highest level of consciousness in this framework, and it's sort of just like pure awesomeness. It's the void of infinite potential, and it's the origin of all creation, and it's the loop of that. It's the origin of creation, the infinite of potential, just kind of all looped together. And this dimension exists beyond space, it exists beyond time, and it serves as a source of divine will, where everything emerges and everything returns. There's a really cool song that I like in Kundalini, and the lyrics, there's a mantra, Akanajor, and essentially what that means is that all things come from God and all things go to God. And the lyrics of the song are, one thing to remember is, all things come from God and all things go to God. Everything comes to Him and it goes back home again. And if you just understand that concept, that all things came from a source, all things go back to the source, it all comes from the source, and then it goes back home, then you'll understand the ninth dimension, and you don't have to understand any of the other heady stuff that I'm talking about in relation to the ninth dimension. That Akanajor mantra is actually a really cool way to ground into the ninth dimension, and I just realized that while I was talking. The significance of the ninth dimension. Well, connecting to the ninth dimension reminds us of our ultimate unity with all that is. It's basically what I just talked about with Akanajor. Everything comes from Him and it goes back home again. It's the place where all dualities dissolve, where we become one with the Creator, one with the Source. In accessing this dimension, it really brings profound insights into the purpose of existence and the interconnected nature of the universe. So why is this relevant? Well, in a world undergoing massive transformation, anchoring ourselves into the ninth dimensional consciousness is going to help us act with intention, with clarity, and be in alignment with more universal truths. this hopefully is going to inspire us to dream big and co-create in a harmonious way that creates a reality aligned with love and with balance. So practical applications of the ninth dimension, deep meditative states that focus you on just the pureness and the oneness of you and on your own infinites. Really, any meditation that we do in Kundalini Yoga can get you to any of these dimensions. But if you're a deep meditator, yeah, you'll get there with this into this ninth dimension. You could visualize the ninth dimension as a point of light that connects all the dimensions and align yourself with the wisdom in just that like moment of creativity and the wisdom that comes from that. Another practical application would be to watch the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, which won an Oscar, I want to say, in 2002. This is a movie, and I don't know whether the filmmaker and the writers have read Barbara Hand Clow and understands, the esoterics behind all this, although they probably do on some level. But it's kind of like the ninth dimension playing out in a really comical way. But yeah, I mean, it's a movie that really shows you that everything is happening everywhere all at once, and that all forms of reality exist, and that all possibilities and multiverses exist. That's very ninth dimension. So Barbara Hand Clow, Alchemy of Nine Dimensions. That is a very brief, kind of novice, I'll be honest, overview of these nine dimensions. These are just based off of the notes that I made based on my understanding after reading her book. I highly recommend, if you're interested in this, go read her book, or just Google or go to YouTube and just search Barbara Hand Clow Nine Dimensions. She is doing a lot of interviews right now, talking about the new version of the new edition of the book, and she can certainly articulate this much better than I can. She is, I think, just a treasure of wisdom, and these teachings are just treasures in my own life, and I hope that in some way they are of interest to you and can serve you, because that's what I'm here for. So with that, I will leave you, and I appreciate everybody who tuned in. I appreciate everybody who watches this at a later time. This is Solstice Eve, so I hope everybody has a beautiful winter solstice, and that this season of winter is a season where you can go deep inside and drop into that fifth dimensional heart space and really just feel more expanded. With that, may the long-time sun shine upon you, all love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on. SelfNine.